SQL Server 2022 is now generally available. Join us for the kickoff of this series to learn all about the capabilities in SQL Server 2022. This week on Data Exposed. Hi, I'm Anna Hoffman, and welcome to this episode of Data Exposed. We are excited to be joined by Bob Ward. Bob, thanks so much for joining us. And today we're going to be talking about SQL Server 2022, some super exciting news. Bob, do you want to break the news to everyone?
Well, you mean the fact that it's finally generally available? Yeah, that would be kind of an exciting news to break. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're excited. We're going to be kicking off a new series for SQL Server 2022 starting now. So Bob, I want to pass it over to you. Tell us about SQL Server 2022.
You know, Anna, the journey started actually almost like a year ago. We done the private preview of SQL Server 2022, and many people don't know that the project name is the city you see right here, Dallas.
Oh, Dallas.
Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah, so back in 2019, I got the great honor of naming the project after a city where I live, Dallas, Texas. Also, I want to call out my colleague Bob Dorr, who works in the SQL team as well, both of us from Dallas. So yeah, Project Dallas is kind of the code name, and it's finally great to see this thing finally launch.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to see it launch, excited to have it on the show. What's in 2022?
Yeah, first of all, one thing I need to make sure everybody understands. No, we're going to talk about 2022.
Okay.
But here's why. There's so many customers that are on releases before SQL 16 and don't realize all the things that happen in these great releases coming up to SQL Server 2022. And in addition, some of the things that we've built in the product are based on foundations of things that we've already done, like Query Store and Polybase and intelligent query processing. So Anna, the first thing that's really important to know is what do you get when you upgrade from, say, SQL 2012 or something like that, right, to go into 2022? You get all this goodness, but you get more. And let's talk about it, right? I think the greatest way to talk about 2020 to start with is why would you do this? What is the value proposition? And we've connected now to Azure in ways never even dreamed possible before with disaster recovery and analytics and security. We're going to talk about that. We're going to dive into those in some future episodes as well. But the engine is the heart of some of the things we do, and security is so important. Sure. Anna, look at this chart right here. You know, we didn't make up this chart. We're the least, the most secure database in the industry of the last decade, according to the NIST organization. But we're including functionality like Ledger for SQL Server, a blockchain built into the product. You'll see that in future episodes in Data Exposed. In addition, we want to make sure people know that the benchmarks are still very important for us, and we think in the industry, to show a standard of SQL performance. And I'm proud to announce that we recently, in partnership with HPE, just announced some new benchmarks for 2022. But also, we're going to talk about built-in query intelligence, which is getting you faster with no code changes as part of the engine just built into the product. And don't forget, this is an edge to cloud story. SQL Server 2022 is part of SQL Edge to Cloud, whether it be running on IoT devices or in technologies like Arc or in the public cloud. So overall, I think what we're providing as the overall value of why you would want to upgrade is pretty powerful.
Got it.
Yeah, but Anna, you were with me on the road in 2019. I remember this, talking about SQL 19.
Right.
And I had this slide, it was like my camera slide, where I showed the major features of the product. Anna, this is the wheel of power.
Oh, the wheel of power.
The wheel of power.
So everyone, I should get my camera
I invented this term, exactly, yeah. Seriously, if you want to go figure out what are the major categories of the product, you look at it this way. We talked about cloud connected. We talked about connecting to things like managed instance or Synapse or Purview. And then you think about built-in query intelligence, enhancing the Query Store for query tuning, using the Query Store to get faster with no code changes, all built into the query processor. And then the meat and potatoes, I think do you remember that term, Anna?
Oh, yeah.
Meat and potatoes? It's security, scalability, and availability. And you'll see some great functionality we put into the product in these areas. But also, we're taking that data virtualization concept like Polybase. We continue to enhance that technology as well. We're going to light up things like Parquet files, data lakes, S3 compatible storage providers, things that we've never tried before to use SQL Server as a data hub. And also, we still care about the T-SQL language. The T-SQL language is a very important part of this product. So we've enhanced that in some very core ways to help new developer scenarios. So yeah, there's your wheel of power, Anna.
Yeah.
Take a quick photo of that real quick.
There's a lot here. And from what I understand in this series, we're going to break down all these capabilities. You're going to show us some demos, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, look for us in the future series to kind of take each one of these and break it apart a little bit and show you what those capabilities look like.
Awesome.
But I thought it'd be important to know a couple things about the release that have not been known yet.
Sure.
Because we've been doing preview for the last few, almost like a year now. And starts with, how do you deploy SQL Server? Here's the great news. It's just like it was before.
It's just
Windows GUI, just worse. Windows GUI command line, GUI interfaces, command lines, package managers for Linux. We have new Linux distributions we're supporting, new versions of these distributions. Containers are still a big part of the SQL 2022 stories. And of course, the marketplace images in Azure VM. And it's important to know that supported operating systems, the latest Windows supported operating systems will work with SQL Server. And I love this story. Your upgrade options that you had before are the same. Did you know, Anna, you can take a SQL 2005 database even and restore it to SQL Server 2022 to upgrade?
Really?
Yeah.
It'll just work.
It'll just work. It built in, right?
Wow.
And then we're still supporting DB Compat as a big option to help mitigate any risk for upgrade. So we have a new Compat level, 160. You'll see that show up in future episodes where that's going to light up some new functionality. But we're going to support older DB Compat versions all the way back to like DB Compat from 2008.
Wow.
So yeah, if you're upgrading from older releases of SQL, you bring it into SQL Server, whether it's in place or database restore, we'll support those DB Compat options. And then we still support things like side-by-side installation. So for the SQL heads out there, this is going to be very familiar to them and know that it's kind of that same feeling of deploying as they've had in the past.
Okay. So I mean, when we talk about deploying, the next thing is setup.
If you're setting up the product, what does that actually look like? Well, there's a lot of things going on in setup that are a little bit different. And one is some things we've actually removed in the product.
Okay.
Now, it's not that this is necessarily a bad thing, but when you go into setup, there's some things you won't see that you used to see before. For example, Polybase connectivity is not there, but it doesn't mean the Polybase feature is not there. It's just that the old Java way of connecting to Hadoop's no longer available. But we got some new stuff. That's the cool part, right? So, example, inside SQL Setup, you can connect to Azure now. Have you heard of this thing called an Azure-enabled SQL Server?
Yeah,
it's a mouthful.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, you heard about that? You can do it now inside SQL Setup itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just log in and...
You log in with your Azure login or use a service principal. And now your SQL Server, whether it's running on premises or multi-cloud, is connected to Azure. And that's going to light up some stuff for you. And then here's one of the things that's going to light up that's pretty interesting. Pay-as-you-go licensing now for SQL Server. Have you heard of that?
I mean, I'm familiar with the concept with Azure, but how does that work with SQL Server?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So notice here in SQL Setup, if you select this option, you can pick Standard or Enterprise. You set up an Arc-enabled SQL Server through Setup. And what we're going to do now is allow you to have flexible licensing. So you can use your normal SQL licenses if you'd like, or you can select this option, and now you're going to pay, while you're connected to Azure, a hourly or monthly rate to bill. And think about these scenarios like retail spikes in business and holiday shopping. You've been able to do that in Azure before. Now you can do that SQL Server on premises. You can set up that SQL Server and say, I'd like to just for this month have a SQL deployed and just pay for that month and not have to use your existing licenses to do it.
Awesome. Seems pretty cool.
I know.
People are going to be excited.
We're going to kind of rock the industry a little bit on this one because I think people have tried to find ways to do flexible licensing in their environment before. So pretty excited to see this land. Yeah, pretty cool. So the other thing is additions, Anna. Up until this point in preview, we've really never talked about the additions of SQL Server and what features go in them. I'm excited today to show you what is in the various addition feature matrix, like Express, Standard, and Enterprise. And I looked at even an Express, which is a free version of SQL Server. You even get things like Purview, AAD authentication. Ledgers in there. Wow. You can do a blockchain in a free version of SQL Server.
Cool.
So, and then if you go to Standard, we're still trying to make sure we support the concept of the surface area being the same. But if you go over to like Enterprise, this is where we're going to light up some things that feel enterprise, like degree of parallelism feedback, for example, or a contained availability group, things of that nature. So I'm excited to see this matrix because we're trying to keep the idea that Express still has value for customers. Standard has that same surface area, maybe some limitations resource-wise, Enterprise being that full feature set. And then, of course, don't forget, Developer Edition's free.
Right.
Still the same Developer Edition you know and love today.
Awesome. Cool. Very cool.
And here's the summary. If you think about it, kind of remember back to our wheel power, right?
Yeah.
Azure-enabled with all this great functionality, built-in query intelligence, meat and potatoes of the engine, right? Data virtualization that we're offering now, and then T-SQL enhancements sprinkled with addition matrix, all the new addition features, pay-as-you-go licensing, connecting ourselves to Azure. It's one of the most power-packed versions of SQL Server I think we've ever released.
Wow, this is really exciting. There's a lot to come. We're going to follow along this series, but Where should people get started?
We built a lot of resources for you, and there's a lot to see right here. And I think you guys maybe can give resources to the audience, right?
Definitely.
Let me pick out a couple you didn't maybe know about. The deck you're seeing today and the deck you'll see on the future versions of our series will be here on this website here, SQL Server 22 Decks. Anna, you know what? I read another book. And I was like, you had time for another book? So yeah, I just released SQL Server 22 Revealed, which is now available. That's a huge deep dive. My wife was commenting that it's 475 pages, so It's not light reading, but it's a nice book to deep dive. And then we have a new workshop, just like we did in the past with SQL 19 and with Azure SQL. We have a workshop on GitHub available for you to go on and do self-study examples, deck, the whole thing's there. We're doing that in person in some events. And then also, of course, Data Exposed. We love the series that we're doing on here. We have Microsoft Mechanics videos as well. And then I'm proud to also announce a new Microsoft Learning Path with the Microsoft Learn team for SQL 2022. So lots of resources for you to kind of study more and learn about the great release we're doing.
Awesome, cool. Well, Bob, thanks so much for coming on the show. To our viewers, thanks for tuning in. We're going to keep this going. We got lots of episodes planned in this series, so be sure to check the description for links to learn more. And we hope to see you next time on Data Exposed.